Good morning. Welcome to the official State of Minnesota Veterans Day ceremony. I'm Brad Lindsay. I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm an Iraq War veteran of the Army and your MC for today's program. Thank you for joining us today as we honor and celebrate all who have served and all who are currently serving. The Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs is proud to plan this program every year and appreciates the National Guard Armory here in Mankato for hosting the event this year. This year is the first year we are holding this event outside of the Twin Cities area in order to allow more communities the opportunity to host the program. We appreciate the warm welcome of the Mankato area as our host community this year. The theme for our program this year is commemorating the end of World War II. More than 326,000 Minnesotans served in World War II. 9,797 died in the line of duty. And over the years, most of these veterans have sadly passed away. But today, we're honored to remember those who have passed and the some 1,700 who are still with us. We look forward to hearing reflections during today's program on the contributions of this greatest generation. Our program will begin with the entrance of the official party. Please rise as you are able and remain standing. Color Guard, present the colors. Please join State Senator Nick Frentz as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
In honor of all our veterans here and in the past, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
The pledge is followed by the Minnesota State University Mankato Maverick Machine Band leading us in the national anthem. Thank you to the color guard from the North Mankato Post 518 American Legion. And thank you to the band for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem. I would now like to invite Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Ussett, the state chaplain with the Minnesota National Guard, to lead us in the invocation.
I invite you to pray with me or in your tradition as I pray in mine. Holy One, we have come together to honor our states and nations veterans today. We're thankful for their dedication and service to our country across the life and generations of our nation. In times of tension and change, give us the courage to be good neighbors, to build bridges, and to seek to heal divides we are experiencing. All of these rights and responsibilities we have as Americans, we enjoy and have been earned by our veterans' blood, sweat, and tears since the founding of our country. As our veterans have served us, give us all the humility, compassion, and strength needed to support and care for them and their families. Bless our gathering and bless our nation's service members, veterans, and their families. I ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Ussett. You may now be seated. As we begin our program, I have the honor of recognizing the individuals seated with me on stage. Please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. My boss, Governor Tim Walz. That seems odd not applauding. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Congressman Brad Finstad. The Consul General of Canada in Minneapolis, Beth Richardson. Minnesota National Guard Brigadier General Simon Schaefer. Dr. Kyle Ward, professor at Minnesota State University. And you've already met Minnesota National Guard Chaplain, Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Ussett. I would also like to recognize some special guests who are with us today sitting in the audience. Again, please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. The elected leaders of Minnesota's congressionally chartered veterans service organizations, collectively referred to as the Commander's Task Force. These organizations include the American Legion, AMVETS. You can throw your hand up so we know where you're AMVETS, Disabled American Veterans, Jewish War Veterans, Marine Corps League, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Veterans of Foreign Wars. I ask the commanders and auxiliary leaders or their representatives to please stand and be recognized. Thank you, commanders, for everything you do. As I mentioned earlier, our theme today is commemorating the end of World War II. We are honored to be joined today by World War II veterans. I ask those veterans of World War II to please stand as they are able and be recognized. We're fortunate to have with us today Dennis Bolt, an Army veteran of D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge. Larry Solars, Navy Seabee from the Pacific Theater. We also welcome Director Pat Kelly from the Minneapolis VA Healthcare System. The Executive Director of the Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum, Randall Dietrich. State Attorney General Keith Ellison. State Senator Eric Putnam, Chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Veterans. State Senator Nick Frentz, who represents the Mankato area. State Representative Matt Bliss, co-chair of the House Veterans and Military Affairs Division. State Representative Luke Frederick. State Representative Emma Greenman. State Representative Terry Steer. Mankato City Council member Kevin Mettler. And Blue Earth County Commissioner Kevin Popp. We also have some county veteran service officers. Greg Peterson from Brown County. Pat Coro from Blue Earth County. And I saw one more, but now I'm not seeing him. But county veteran service officers, those are the folks. Those are our boots on the ground. So if you haven't ever seen one or talked to them, you should do so. We also have the reigning Miss Minnesota 2025, Emma Vries. Then I have some of my fellow state of Minnesota agency commissioners as well. Commissioner Paul Marquardt of the Department of Revenue. And finally, my leadership team from the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, including Chief of Staff Dave Bellafy, my Deputy Commissioner of Veterans Healthcare, Eric Maintanen, our brand new Assistant Commissioner of Veterans Healthcare, Diane Lynch DeCombs, and Deputy Commissioner of Programs and Services, Ben Johnson. Thank you for everyone for joining us today. I would also like to recognize and thank the following local contacts for their support of today's event. A big thank you to the Minnesota National Guard Armory, Mankato, and their staff, assistants, and use of their facilities. The Mankato Fire Department with the patriotic flag display off their fire truck near the entrance on the main road. Minnesota State University Mankato ROTC cadets. Our local caterer, Chef Craig, for providing a delicious breakfast to everyone. And the festive balloon vendor, Parties and Weddings, another local small business. Before we welcome our first speaker, I wanted to take a moment to remind you that the mission of the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs is to serve veterans, their dependents, and survivors by connecting them with the federal and state care and benefits they have earned. We are separate from the federal VA and are not currently impacted by the federal government shutdown, which thankfully seems to now be over. We have 2 information tables in the back of the room, and I encourage you to visit with our team members there to learn more about our services. We operate 8 state veterans homes and the 4 state veteran cemeteries located across Minnesota. We also act as advocates for veterans filing claims with the federal VA and are committed to ensuring that Minnesota veterans and their families receive the benefits they have earned. The Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs is also focused on 2 important issues. First, ending veterans homelessness. We're very close to achieving this goal. Second, preventing veteran suicide. We continue to work with communities across the state to raise awareness and provide education to support veterans in crisis. If you have any questions, please call us at 888-LINK-VET or online at minnesotaveteran.org. That number is answered 7 days a week, and we can connect you to getting the help and services you need. Okay, now on with the program. I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Kyle Ward. Dr. Ward is the Director of Social Studies Education at Minnesota State University, Mankato, where he works with the future social studies teachers as well as offers classes through the history department on U.S. history, World War II, and the Holocaust. Dr. Ward completed his PhD from Indiana State University and has written 6 books, including 2 on military units from Minnesota. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kyle Ward.
Good morning and welcome to Mankato. First of all, I want to thank the MDVA for bringing this down to Mankato and putting on such a big event. This is a lot of work that goes in the background that a lot of people don't notice. As was mentioned earlier, my name is Kyle Ward. I work at Minnesota State University. Most of my job is working with future social studies teachers. Whenever I start my methods classes, I always let my future teachers know that I am by far probably the greatest social studies teacher to ever live in Mankato. I usually say this with the governor not sitting behind my back, so we might have a discussion later on about that. The other part of my job is to actually teach history, and I'm currently teaching a class on World War II and the Holocaust. In my youth, I was raised by a family that had 5 family members that served during World War II, so history has always been very important and very interesting to me, which led me to 2 of my books, being about Minnesota military history. One on the 13th Minnesota Infantry Regiment that served during the Spanish-American and Philippine-American War. And the group I want to talk about today is the 99th Infantry Battalion Separate that served during World War II. The 99th Infantry Battalion was part of a unique program that they started during World War II. It was an all-ethnic group program, so there was a Japanese-American unit, there was a Greek unit, an Austrian unit, and the unit that I want to talk about today is the Norwegian Americans, which made up the 99th Infantry Battalion Separate. If you're going to have a Norwegian American unit, you should probably go to Minnesota. We had a number of people here. You had to be able to speak the language. Of the 1,000 men that served in this unit, about 40% came from Norway, so they were trapped outside their country and wanted a place to go and fight. The other 60% were made up of primarily Minnesotans, North Dakotans, Wisconsin, Iowans, and people from the Washington area here as well. They're going to get their start at Camp Ripley, which, quick side note here, my good friend Randall Dietrich and Doug Thompson are both here today too. They are creating, just outside of Camp Ripley, just north of Little Falls, a brand new Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum. They're going to encourage all of you to come up next summer, and I think next September is the grand opening, 40,000 square feet. They're going to do every day what we're doing today, is honoring our veterans. Back to the 99th. After training at Camp Ripley, they moved to Fort Snelling for a brief period of time, and then they were off to Camp Hale, Colorado, where they trained as ski troops and in mountain warfare. The gentleman who I wrote the book with, we make the argument that this is some of the most rigorous training during World War II, primarily because when the U.S. Army decided to create the Office of Strategic Services, they came to Camp Hale and found 100 men of the 99th to start that unit. The other thing that we found that's always been really interesting to us is there's a very good chance that the men of the 99th served as one of the great decoys during World War II. When the Germans took over Norway, there were about 350 to 400,000 German troops that were kept there. And what we believe is that the 99th got a lot of attention during World War II, usually a lot of secrecy around the military. There was a lot of film footage, newspaper reports, radio interviews. And the biggest thing was when they were at Camp Hale, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt actually came to visit the 99th. And their film crews were there, the newspapers were there and stuff like that. So we think this is part of a decoy to keep them away from the Normandy beaches at the time. When they're done with the training, they head to New York, and then they're off to England where they do some more training. All the snow gear is going to be left behind, so we know that they're not going to go to Norway at this point. They then head to Normandy. They were at the beaches of D-Day, but they were not there on the day of the D-Day invasion. They're going to be there about 10 to 12 days later. My colleague who wrote the book with me insists that they are the Forrest Gump group of World War II because they seem to be everywhere at all different places. I'll make some quick arguments for that here. They're going to fight their way across France. To my colleague over here, they served alongside the Rangers for a brief period of time here as well. They then are going to be at Aachen, which is going to be the first German city that's going to be liberated. Interesting note about Aachen, we had 2 full divisions surrounding the city, and the Germans are trying to escape and get their army out of there. They took this unit of 1,000 men and plugged one of the roads that was there. So they blocked them from being able to escape at that point in time. What happened was 9 days of shelling, and the men who survived that referred to that as 9 days of hell. The men who survived that, the US Army said, okay, let's give them a reprieve, let's let them go someplace else. So they sent them to Malmedy, Belgium, which is a fine place, but then on December 16th, 1944, this is going to be one of the main attacks. This is where the Germans are going to come through, and not just the German army, but this is going to be the SS. They're going to be sending their troops through. So a small band of Norwegian Americans from the 99th Infantry Battalion and a ragtag group of engineers are going to thwart a number of attacks. They're going to be coming from the German SS at that point in time, known as the Battle of the Bulge. After a month of fighting the Battle of the Bulge, you'd think it was time for a break, but unfortunately they got sent to a new mission. One that's very tragic. The Medical Corps and a group of soldiers are going to be sent as guards to go to Buchenwald. So the 99th is going to show up at one of the concentration camps a couple of days after the liberation of that. Then just kind of a unique story. If you've ever seen the movie or had the pleasure of reading the book, The Monuments Men, this is a group of men whose duty it was to find all the gold, treasure, artwork, and things like that that were being stolen by the Nazis. When they found it at Merker's mine, it was the 99th's duty to be the convoy to move it from the mine into bank vaults and safety vaults and places like that throughout Germany. So a really fascinating story with that. May 1945, the war comes to an end, but interesting enough, it's not done for the 99th because they are now going to be sent to Norway. And remember that there's about 350,000 Germans in Norway, and there was no proof that they were going to surrender right away. So the 99th kept training. Luckily, they surrendered. The war is going to come to an end. They get a really unique opportunity. These sons of Norway, they get to be the honor guard for King Haakon VII when he returns to Norway. They stay in Norway through the summer, help the government get established again real quickly here, and then literally almost 80 years to what we're talking about today, they're going to go home. Much like 16 million other young Americans, they're going to come back home. They're going to get back to their jobs. A lot of them are going to go get college educations. They're going to get married, get back and start their families, start their lives over again at this point in time. Sadly, and I'm going to focus in on the 99th, 2 unfortunate things are going to happen. One, if anybody grew up with or knew people from the World War II generations, as I said, I have my 5 uncles. That generation did not talk about World War II. Unfortunately, they didn't share all their stories. The other thing, saying this in Minnesota, if you're used to these stoic, old Norwegian Americans, they weren't going to brag about anything. They weren't going to share anything either along the way here as well. Let me go pivot back here real quickly. I am teaching a class on World War II and the Holocaust right now. One of my first questions I asked the class is I said, what's your story? What's your connection to World War II? And of my 35 students, I only had 5 students who raised their hand and knew that there were any kind of family connection to World War II. So I have assigned the following assignment. They have to do research on their family or their community and things like that as well. Having said that, I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to put my professor hat back on. And everybody in this room and on this stage now has an assignment and homework. If the rumors are true, I'm an easier grader than former social studies teachers that used to live in Mankato, so don't worry about the grade curve here. But if you are a veteran, if you're related to a veteran, you know a veteran, please take time to collect their story. Share your story, record it, write it down. We've got the fantastic Minnesota Military Museum being built. Share it with them. Please make sure that 80 years after your service is done, your story hasn't disappeared. And I'll leave with this. On this Veterans Day, please remember those who served, but also secure your own legacy and of those you served with, so that the future generations will know about what you did and the sacrifices that were made. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. I love hearing that. I love the history of, especially military history. I was one of those weird kids in middle school who used to read the books about World War II and First World War, so thank you. As a token of our appreciation to the city of Mankato for hosting our program today, Governor Walz will now present the Veterans Day proclamation to Mankato City Council member Kevin Mettler. Governor and City Councilman, please step forward. Next up, I'd like to have Minnesota National Guard Brigadier General Simon Schaefer come to the podium. Brigadier General Simon Schaefer is the current director of the Joint Staff to the Minnesota National Guard. In this role, he serves as a primary advisor to the Adjutant General and is responsible for the operating capability of the Joint Staff, including strategic planning, emergency response, and ensuring a competent and ready force. General Schaefer's career has included previous leadership roles such as the commander of the 2nd Infantry Brigade Combat Team of the 34th Infantry Division and Chief of Staff for the 34th Infantry Division while deployed to Kuwait in support of Operation Spartan Shield. Please welcome General Schaefer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Welcome to the men and women we are honoring today, our nation's veterans. And good morning, Governor, Senator, Congressman, and all of our other distinguished guests that were introduced earlier. I've had the privilege of meeting many veterans from the greatest generation, such as World War II veteran and Red Bull soldier Don Halverson, who is currently 102 years old. Hearing Don's story of fighting at Monte Cassino in Italy is one example of the many stories of courage and sacrifice of our nations and our allies, service members, who fought to defend freedom against a formidable enemy during World War II. Allies like our Canadian neighbors to the north, we are fortunate to stand with them 80 years ago, and we remain shoulder to shoulder today. Partners in peace, defenders in democracy around the world, this enduring partnership is a testament to the strength of our international unity. It's an honor to have the Honorable Consul General Richardson with us this Veterans Day. Your presence here today is a testament to the importance of this occasion, and we are grateful for your participation. While the Allies won the Second World War, the victory came at a tremendous cost. The stories of those who served and sacrificed are woven into the very fabric of who we are as a nation, and those memories stay with me every time I look out at the men and women I have the privilege to lead within the Minnesota National Guard. This year, our public affairs team has focused on what we call the future face of the force. This phrase allows us to look in two directions at once. First, we look back at our veterans, those who stood the watch before us, paved the path for all who serve today. You built the reputation our military holds around the globe, one of excellence, resilience, and trust. And second, we look forward to the courageous men and women now raising their right hands and dedicating their strengths to a grateful nation. When they take the oath, they step into a legacy carried by generations before them. To those new to our ranks, when you put on the uniform, you wear the history, the courage, and the sacrifice of all who came before you. And you gain something special, a team that will never leave you behind, and a purpose greater than yourself. The future face is about people. While the modernization of our equipment, weapons, and aircraft is vital, our true strength has never been in our equipment. It lies in the character of those who serve, past, present, and future, bound together by a common call. Here in Minnesota, we are fortunate. Our communities, employers, organizations continue to honor the past while investing into the future. If you are a veteran, thank you. Please share your story. If you are new to the formation, welcome to the team and listen closely to the veterans and who have gone before you. You are a part of the legacy written in courage and sealed in honorable service to this nation, a legacy that will be trusted but will never break. In closing, we are always looking for good Minnesota American citizens who want to give back to the community. expand their life experience, and obtain career skills or benefits such as healthcare or funding for education. Minnesotans who want to be part of something bigger than themselves. If you're interested in joining the team or know of someone who is considering service, please seek out a recruiter or visit an armory. As the late President Ronald Reagan said, some people live an entire lifetime and wonder if they have ever made a difference in the world. A veteran does not have that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Thank you for wearing a World War II era uniform, too. Those are great, the old pinks and greens, and they brought them back. So, we have a special guest with us today, bringing greetings from our neighbor to the north, Canada. As I said, I'm kind of a history nerd, and our history is always a little U.S.-centric, but those of you who don't know, Canada, the troops from Canada were right there on the beaches of Normandy, the same as we were in World War II, just different beaches. I've served with them in various places where I've served across the world as well, and we value that alliance, just as the General said. So, I'm proud to introduce Beth Richardson, who was appointed the Consul General of Canada in Minneapolis in August of 2023. As Canada's Consul General in the Upper Midwest, Ms. Richardson works with a team of 17 consulate staff to strengthen trade and economic ties, reinforce security alliances, enhance political, academic, and cultural links, and assist Canadians visiting or living in Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Please welcome Consul General Beth Richardson.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. It's a real honor for me to join with you today. In Canada, we celebrate Remembrance Day today as well. I want to begin by thanking Mayor Nassad for hosting us here in Mankato, and particularly to Commissioner Lindsay, who's allowed us to share this day with you. General Schaefer, thank you for your powerful words regarding the longstanding friendship between Canada and the United States. Your office in particular has built a longstanding partnership with us that deepens our ties. Both my parents served in the Canadian Air Force, and I'm a military brat. And as Canada's Consul General, I carry a deep, deep personal appreciation for the sacrifices made by those who wear the uniform and their families. Canadians today gather in veterans' halls, at the Legion, participating in parades, laying wreaths, and holding ceremonies in honor of our heroes. And today, as we gather in Minnesota, doing very much the same, let me offer that we are gathering not as two distinct nations, but as one community of service. Throughout North America, people make a choice to serve, and in that choice is a unifying force that transcends. For well over 100 years, Minnesotans and Canadians have served together, standing shoulder to shoulder in some of the most challenging missions. If you visit Victory Memorial Parkway in Hennepin County, you might learn the stories of Minnesotans who fought as part of the Canadian Expeditionary Force in World War I, like Thomas Kennedy, who was a locomotive machinist from Minneapolis with a passion for America's favorite pastime. He enlisted in Fort Frances, Ontario in 1917 and arrived in England early the next year. That November, James was struck and killed at Passchendaele Ridge in Belgium while walking with a Christmas box that was making its way to him. He was 34. Roy Remick, also from Minneapolis, worked as a streetcar conductor and moved to Winnipeg in 1915 to enlist, heading out to Europe shortly after. He was killed a year later by a bomb attack along the Somme. He was just 33. These brave Minnesotans who fought with Canada early on demonstrate the deep and lasting connections between our two nations. One out of every 10 Canadians fought in World War II, battling side by side with Americans to defeat Axis powers. In modern times, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the icy terrain of the Arctic, our forces have trained together, deployed together, endured together, and were victorious. More recently, members of the Minnesota National Guard trained with Canadian forces in Resolute Bay, far up in the Canadian Arctic, braving temperatures of -65 to learn Arctic survival skills. They built igloos and shared seal meat and learned not just how to survive, but how to trust one another in the harshest conditions imaginable. That same year, members of the Royal Canadian Air Force joined Minnesota's 934th Aeromedical Evacuation Squad in joint training and exercises at the Minneapolis-St. Paul Reserve Station. These stories don't make headlines, but they make a difference every day, every mission, every operation. The stories remind us that there will always be people who rise to the call, and they remind us of every veteran, every National Guard member, every active duty serviceman in this room, men and women. You carry forward the same values that we have always fought for: freedom, love of country, and service. So to every veteran here in the room, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've given up to support your country. And thank you for reminding us of what it means to serve something greater than ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul General Richardson. Seal meat, huh? I know in Iraq I probably would have tried that. It's better than some of the Army food, so for sure. Next, I just want to take a moment quick to recognize and thank the Minnesota State University Mankato Maverick Machine Marching Band. The band will now help us honor each branch of the military with the Armed Forces Salute. Inside your program, you'll find the words for each service song. I know, Marines, you don't need it, so you were screaming it all night last night. If you're too hoarse, just, whisper along. I invite you all to sing along, and please stand as you're able to be recognized when the song of your branch of service is played.
The United States Army. United States Marines. The United States Navy. The United States Air Force. The United States Space Force. The United States Coast Guard.
Thank you to the band for playing those always enjoyable branch of service songs. Everybody always looks a little confused when we get to the Space Force song there, though. Still, we'll get used to it and have more veterans as we go. And thank you to the Marines. I was surprised we had that many of you that could stand up this soon after your birthday last night. So, congratulations, good job. In Minnesota, we're fortunate to have strong support for veterans from our state and national leaders, and a number are here with us today. To begin their Veterans Day remarks, I'm pleased to formally introduce Minnesota's Governor, Tim Walz. He is the 41st governor of Minnesota, serving since 2019 after being elected to a second term in 2022. He's a former high school teacher and coach and a retired command sergeant major in the Army National Guard. Before becoming governor, he served 6 terms as a U.S. representative for Minnesota's 1st Congressional District. Please welcome back to the podium, Governor Tim Walz.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Lindsay, a thank you to you and to the dedicated women and men of the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs who come to work every single day to serve our heroes and to make sure that we are delivering on the promise that this nation made. To Senator Klobuchar, Representative Finstead, to all the elected officials that are here, thank you. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you every day for being part of this great experiment, which is the idea that people can rule themselves in a democracy. Consul General Richardson, Minnesota and America has no greater friend than Canada, and we're grateful that you are here. Dr. Ward, I know you teach at the best university in America, so I'm not surprised. You did a wonderful job with that, and we appreciate that. General, Chaplain, great to have you here. To each and everybody who came and paused your lives today, thank you. Thank you for coming in this moment. It's something we do on this. I know the people in this room, Veterans Day is every day of the year, to the families who are here and to those who serve. But it's important. It's important to stop. It's important to listen to the stories that you hear. And to all of the veterans, with a special thank you, as we noted the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. This is a group of warriors who came home to a nation truly divided. We have been divided before, and we've come back together. But this group of veterans came home to a country that couldn't separate the warrior from the war. And they were not given the health care that they were promised. They were not treated in the way that they should have been treated. But instead of becoming bitter and angry about it, the Vietnam veterans transformed how we view our care for veterans. They transformed the VA hospital into the best healthcare system in the world. And we have the best director in Pat Kelly here today, and I'm grateful for you from the Minneapolis VA. They transformed how we talked about our veterans and what was expected of delivery. So to the Vietnam veterans, thank you for being the model that we needed. Thank you for transforming how we care for those veterans. Today, we're joined by a couple of our heroes. These are the ones that the story said it's scarcely believable that such people walked amongst us. Our World War II veterans. Larry Solars is here, and we're grateful. We're grateful for that service. And Dennis Bolt is here. Mankatons know Dennis pretty well. The last time I saw Dennis, we were at Normandy for the 80th commemoration of the D-Day landing last summer. And for those of you who have had the privilege to be at D-Day, it is a transformational event. And to be there with people like Dennis, when you go to D-Day, you drive down these little French winding roads. And on those roads on that day, summer day, little flags at the houses and children holding flags, French flags, British flags, American flags, and Canadian flags. So as Dennis and his fellow warriors were fighting and dying on Omaha and Utah Beach, Canadians were fighting and dying on Juneau. And our allies from countless countries, all with the sole purpose of defending freedom and human rights and fighting in a foreign land to free people that they would never know or never meet. And then they came back home and they built their lives and they built their families of that greatest generation. The lesson that the Vietnam veterans and those that fought in World War II taught us, they were giving us a gift. And it's up to us to what we do with that gift, how we conduct ourselves. They laid down their lives so that we could govern freely. And I'm going to make the case that the story doesn't get told enough. There's a group of folks sitting here in the front, the Commander's Task Force, the County Veteran Service Officers, the veterans who belong to these groups, and a group of legislators who I think deserve the utmost credit. I talked to other governors and other folks across the country. Very few places, if any, do what they do here. The Commander's Task Force represents over 400,000 veterans from all these organizations. They come together and they put a list of things together that they want their government to do to care for their veterans. It isn't a wish list. It isn't a when you get around to it, do it. It's we fought and earned and gave you the right to self-govern. Now do these things to improve their lives. And now that's easier said than done because it's tough. That whole adage about governing, you don't want to know how your sausages or your laws are made. Well, the sausages taste good at least. You get something out of that. This is hard work. But what happened here was there's an agreement amongst the people of Minnesota, led by this group, led by the veterans, and led by a bipartisan, nonpartisan group of legislators who determined before we do anything else, when we're budgeting, lots of important things. Educating our children. I did notice Commissioner Lindsay missed one of our commissioners. It may be because we are still in construction season. Minnesota Department of Transportation Commissioner Daubenberger is here. So when it's over, you'll be happy. But before we fund all those things the government does, this group of folks decided we are never going to pit our veterans against another worthy project. We're not going to pit our veterans against our children, against our roads, against our agriculture, whatever it would be. So what they decided to do, and what they collectively did was, they pulled out all of the veterans work and said, before we do anything else, we are going to pass a budget, fund our veterans' homes, fund the care for our veterans, build the museums, do the things that we need to do, and then we will have the other debates. Now, it's hard when you're legislating because you have to build packages sometime and say, look, I need you to vote for this. The problem with veterans is if you've got a project you want, and then you end up saying, well, you wouldn't vote against veterans, would you? When you really didn't want to vote for something. So this group got together, made the decision, and every year for the last 4 years, we have unanimously, I believe in most cases, maybe a vote or two, unanimously passed the most aggressive and the most fully funded veterans packages in state's history to care for our veterans. And for that is how you honor veterans' sacrifices. That's how you live up to the sacrifices that were made. You follow through with your promises. You work together. You lift yourself up in a manner that those veterans on Omaha Beach didn't care what country they came from. They didn't care what religion they came from. They didn't care the color of their skin. They cared that they were there to defend those that needed to be defended and stand up for our values. And I would make the case in here, and a huge thank you to the Commander's Task Force, to the veterans who belong to these organizations, and to the legislatures who consistently make sure that Minnesota is a place that cares for our veterans, lives up to their ideals, and follows through with those promises. So thank you to the legislators. I would also say that tradition holds true with our representatives, and you're going to hear from two of them. You're going to hear the commitment that we make collectively together. While the VA is the big one, the state works underneath those. And in our senior senator, in Amy Klobuchar, we have an individual who came from a veterans family. Senator Klobuchar, from her very times working at the county level, has put veterans care and the delivery of those services as a priority, continuing to make sure that the resources are delivered, that the care is given, and that accountability over how we do that is kept. And we are blessed to have our senior senator here today, Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Well, thank you so much, Governor. I'm sure it's great to be home in Mankato, and it's good to be here with the Congressman as well. He's heading to Washington. I got up at 3 in the morning Minnesota time, and the Delta flight was on time, and got here to be with all of you today. Thank you to all of our electeds, Attorney General Ellison, the legislative leaders, commissioners, city council members, mayors, and of course Commissioner Lindsay, who's been such a great leader for our state, as well as the general. Thank you. I did want to thank you, Dr. Ward, and I loved how you described some of the work that our country has done in the past, but also it should be a guide for us in the future. Beth Richardson, thank you. She knows I lead the Canadian-American group in the Senate. I got to go visit with the new Prime Minister, Prime Minister Carney, this spring with Senator Kramer from North Dakota and a few others. He was great, but we did make kind of not really a monetary bet, but a bet on the women's pro-hockey of the Minnesota frost, which is really kind of insightful for the weather we're about to see and did see this last week. Brr, brr, it's cold in here. There must be some frost in the atmosphere. That is their cheer, okay? It is, lastly, but not really last, I want to acknowledge my in-laws, Bill and Marilyn Bessler, who live here in Mankato, and came by after they found out we finished our voting last night. And I wanted to thank them for not just being the parents of my husband, but raising 6 boys in Mankato. They had 4 boys, kind of wanted a girl, and had identical twin boys. They lived in a single trailer home at the time, and Bill simply built an extra bunk bed, so the boys lived in triple bunk beds in their trailer home and are all doing really well, and I thank you for being such incredible parents. Veterans Day is personal for everyone here. For me, I always think about my dad, and he once wrote a book called The Heroes Among Us, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and I can't think of a better way to describe our vets. Like so many of you, those that stood on that front line, the stories we're hearing from World War II, through their sacrifice, built a future where liberty prevailed over tyranny, and we get to live in that future. One story I want to share today, and at the end I'll introduce his family who are here. One of those heroes was U.S. Army Captain Willibald Charles Bianchi, who fought valiantly in World War II. Listen to this story. He was born not too far from here in New Ulm, grew up on a small poultry farm. When his dad died in an accident, he left high school to take care of the farm and support his family. He went on to study at the University of Minnesota Farm School and South Dakota State, where classmates called him Medals. That's because he wore his ROTC uniform, partly because he could not afford clothing, but also because he was so proud. After he graduated in 1940, he was immediately commissioned as an Army officer, and he was deployed to the Philippines, where he served as a member of a unit called the Philippine Scouts. In February of 1942, he led a daring charge that cleared a line of Japanese machine gun nests. He suffered multiple wounds, but kept leading his men until he lost consciousness. His courage earned him the Congressional Medal of Honor. A few months later, he was captured and endured the 65-mile Bataan Death March. In captivity, he continued to help his fellow soldiers, trading with his captors to get food for the starving, and uplifted everyone's spirit. He made the ultimate sacrifice as a prisoner of war aboard a Japanese prisoner ship in 1945. He was only 29 years old. This August, more than 80 years later, his remains were finally identified. His story reminds us of a solemn promise that we bring every missing hero home no matter how long it takes. So if the Bianchi family could please stand. They're out here somewhere, right there. Thank you for being here. The story reminds us that we can never fully repay what our veterans have given our nation, but we can honor their service now. That means giving them what they deserve. That means giving them the education when they get home, if they need that, making sure they have a roof over their head, making sure they have a job, and making sure they get the health care they need. And I am so proud that after years of work on this, because of Minnesota vets that approached me and other members of Congress, we were able to finally pass the Honoring Our Heroes Act. We were finally able to pass the bill to take care of our veterans' health care when they were exposed to burn pits. We must continue to fulfill those promises. And one other promise that we made, point of personal privilege, I had a editorial today in the Star Tribune with General Vodal, the former head of CENTCOM, and he and I talked about a bill that must pass. And I lead that bill with Senator Lindsey Graham. It's called the Afghan Adjustment Act. Because when we make promises to our soldiers, thank you. Oftentimes, we also make promises to those who serve with them. We also make promises to those who have hurt by war in places where we have led. You think about the World War II refugees and others that came to our country and have done so many great things. You think about those that came over after the Vietnam War, how they are ingrained in our community, the Hmong, the Lao, all of those that came and what they mean to Minnesota. Yet right now, we have within our own midst, in our own state, in our own country, Afghan interpreters, drivers, medics, engineers who risk everything, often at great personal expense to themselves and their families, to further America's mission. And they remain in limbo, facing uncertainties, not knowing if they're going to be sent back to the Taliban at every moment. In the past, we always gave them a path to citizenship, and that's what the fulfilling promises to Afghan allies does. We must keep our covenants with those that served with us. So, and I will note, as so many of our veterans know, it is strongly supported as a top priority of all of our veterans organizations, and we've got to remember that as we move forward into the next year. So to all our military veterans, service members, and military families, you represent the best of America. God bless you, God bless our veterans, and God bless, in a very difficult time, the United States of America. Thank you. Now, wait a minute, I am not done. I have the honor of introducing my colleague, Congressman Finstead. We achieved something that people kept looking at us and saying, what? Just at the end of last year, thanks to an incredible researcher in southern Minnesota, we realized that the American eagle was not actually our national bird. That's true. And we actually passed legislation that made the American eagle the national bird. We also have worked together. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee on the current National Defense Bill, which, as those that represent our military know, it's nearly done. It's passed the Senate and the House with strong votes. We just have to work a few things out. Both strongly support that bill. We're working on a Mankato Vet Center here, and I thank him for his friendship and his work. I give to you Congressman Finstead.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Senator, thank you for being a workhorse. I mean, you were voting on the Senate floor in D.C. last night. You're on a plane early this morning, and you make time to come here to Mankato. So thank you. Thank you for your friendship and your leadership. Governor, thank you. Welcome back home to Mankato. Welcome back home to the 1st Congressional District. And I just personally want to say thank you for your service. Thank you. I would also like to thank, I see a couple County Veteran Service officers here, Greg, Mike, a few others. I just want to thank you for what you do for our communities. I hear so often that we, from a government perspective, don't quite have it figured out. When we have men and women leaving active duty, the bus drops you off with the duffel bag and say, here you go. And so we have to do a better job, and I think the counties do such a great job of really trying to walk the men and women from that active duty status into veteran status. So I just want to thank you as the County Veteran Service officers for being here. I had a couple prepared remarks, but then hearing Dr. Ward speak, I started to recalculate a little bit. So I want to tell you a little story. I've known many veterans my whole life, but this veteran stands out, and I've known him as long as I have a memory. And he is a 104-year-old World War II veteran named Paul Wojan. Paul Wojan from the New Ulm area is my first cousin once removed. So I had to look that up this morning because I'm like, he's my cousin, right? Well, he's my dad's cousin, so that means he's once removed. Quick show of hands, how many of you met Paul? All right. So those of you that just raised your hands, you didn't just meet him, you probably sat and talked with him for hours because that guy can talk. He can tell you stories, and his stories are so fascinating. And so ever since I was a young boy growing up on the farm, Paul was a part of our life, obviously as family, but his stories and his love and commitment to our family, to our country, and to our community was something that was just instilled in me from the very young age. My wife and I are very blessed, and I am very honored to own the Wojan farm today. And Dr. Ward, you also said something about the Norwegian heritage in southern Minnesota. For the first 15 years of my life, I thought it was the Wojan farm because of my Norwegian grandfather. So it's good to hear you put all that together. But Paul's story isn't a story of just his service and just of the battles that he faced when he was, in active duty in World War II. His story started much younger on the farm, like so many of you in this room, so many of you that have served in Minnesota, in our communities. Paul and his brothers all, joined the military. They were tinkerers, they were fixers, they were mechanics. They knew how to make things work with duct tape and JB Weld. And the military welcomed them very happily. Paul tells the story many times of different missions that he was on, that his farmer fix-it abilities came in handy and saved lives. And I know a lot of you in this room could probably say that same thing. And I think it speaks so much to the heritage that we have in Minnesota: hardworking, love of country, love of neighbor, love of family. And that's what we really celebrate today. We celebrate your commitment, your love of your neighbors that you maybe have never met, your love of country, and your commitment to serve that great country that you love. And so Paul's story is that. Two quick funny stories. So my wife and I owning that farm now, There's been a lot of questions over the years that come up when I find things on this farm that Paul grew up on. One, we were redoing a pasture and I found this huge boulder at the corner of a pasture, but there was a hole in it. And this hole was clearly chiseled out. So I had an event where I saw Paul and I said, "Hey, Paul, tell me about this big rock that I found with this hole in it." He just looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Well, we learned how to use dynamite when I was in the military." And we didn't know how to get that rock out of there, so we started chiseling it away, and my plan was to dynamite that rock. So that speaks to, again, Paul. The other piece is we have an 18-acre nice flat pasture on this land, and I asked Paul, I said, it's kind of narrow towards the end, and it seems like it was made not just for the pasture. What was that all about? And he smiled once again, and he said, well, we didn't have a lot of time off when we were in the military, but when we did, we would, we all could fly, or we figured out how to fly, so we wanted to land right on the farm. So they had a little runway where they were landing planes right on our farm, and that speaks to his sense of adventure, and I think that story could be told for a lot of you in this room. I will close with this, a little hope. Senator Klobuchar and I serve in a Congress right now that by all means is functionally dysfunctional. And I think we can all attest to some frustrations with the politics of today, what is and what isn't working in government. But I'm here to tell you that Senator Klobuchar and I work shoulder to shoulder on a lot of issues. And when I look at veterans issues, I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I don't look at Amy and see a senator with a sweatshirt with a D on it. She doesn't look at me as a Republican member of Congress with a sweatshirt with an R on it. We look at each other and we see USA. And so we have to continue to lean into that, lean into our relationships where we can find common ground. I mean, Benjamin Franklin's rolling over in his grave right now because we have the bald eagle as our national bird and not the turkey, so we did that. But there is a lot of work ahead of us. The Mankato Vet Center, we have to see that through. We have to continue to support. We have to continue to support our county veteran service officers and strengthen them and give them more resources and opportunities to be that direct handoff from our active military to our veteran status. We have to continue to work with our VA. We have to continue to work to make sure that our services are provided as locally as possible, first class as possible, and make sure that we are giving the dignity and care that you all have earned and deserve. And so that's what Amy and I continue to work on. And I will tell you that despite the news and the media trying to show us and tell us that we hate each other, we don't. We don't. We find ways to work together and to really care for our neighbors and to continue to push this great country forward. And so for those of you that have served our country, thank you. For those of you that are family members in the audience, thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice, your commitment, your keeping the home front burning when your spouse, your family member raised their hand to serve our great country. And for those of you that are in the back of the room, I see a lot of law enforcement. Thank you for your service. Thank you for protecting our communities and being there for us when we need you in the worst of times. And I just will finish with this. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you to all of our elected officials for your remarks and for joining us today to recognize our veterans. So, please stand as you are able, and as I welcome back Chaplain Ussett to lead us in the benediction.
Lord, thank you for this time we have had to gather together this morning. Help us to embody the spirit of service demonstrated to us by the generations of veterans that have fought for the nation we have today. Bless us all in our departure from here and as we travel to wherever our homes may be. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen.
You can sit. Thank you, Chaplain Ussett. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Governor, for pointing out Commissioner Daubenberger. She's hiding over there. Commissioners are supposed to sit together so I can spot you. So But thank you. Minnesota Department of Transportation probably hires almost more vets than any other agency in the state, and they have a great veteran employee resource group that I spoke to just a month or so ago about their benefits. Commissioner Marquardt also has a very big Veterans Employee Resource Group at the Department of Revenue, and I'm slated to speak with them next week, I think it is, on the 18th through the 20th. Normally I'm invited in to speak about benefits and what the agency does, and this one kind of threw me. They asked me to actually speak about myself and my service and how I got to be Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. I was like, oh, that's a tough one. So scaring our comms department, I actually had to create my own PowerPoint all by myself and added the pictures and designed it all. So we'll see how that goes, Paul. Hopefully you can join us. So I also want to recognize, I talked earlier about one of our special areas of interest in that we're trying to solve, our veteran suicide prevention, but our veterans homelessness, which are actually pretty tied together. And I noticed as I was sitting here, we have two individuals from our largest and most active nonprofit partner who's been in the business of fighting veterans homelessness for a long time, and we're taking on that fight before our agency even got serious about it. The Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans. We have Nathaniel Sauls. And your local Mankato representative manages the Radical Townhomes for Veterans, Sue Worlds, in the audience today. So we would not be where we are at right now with veterans homelessness and the success we've had if it wasn't for that organization and those folks who are fighting that battle. So thank you. Concluding the event here, the Minnesota Military and Veterans Museum invites you to sit in on one or more short 20-minute films about World War II, developed in partnership with Lakeland and Pioneer PBS. The first will feature Bud, a World War II veteran, and Paul Nakasone from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. To attend these films, exit through the main door and you'll be directed to the screening room. Please remain standing as you are able please rise as you're able for the departure of the official party. This concludes the State of Minnesota Veteran Day ceremony. Have a wonderful day and don't forget to thank a veteran. Band?